Okay, welcome back everyone to the 434th Knowledge Seekers Workshop here on Thursday, May 26, 2022. This is the second part of the workshop, and usually we have questions and answers in this part. Is that how you'd like to continue today, Mr. Kish?
Yes, we carry as normal. There are a couple of things which I would like to remind the knowledge seekers. One is that don't forget that the workshop is set up for you to join in and to be part of with the use of the Ganses and other things. And secondly, what we launched the tip, the lip, and the hip cups for different conditions of what we call need or what we call usage. These we need to be taken up by as many people as possible, that we can create a database for what we call research to become the next step. We looking into the herpes, we're looking into migraine, we're looking into menstruation pain, and we're looking into other things that leads and brings a new condition that we can launch what we call the new knowledge. These are important for us in the Keshe Foundation. That allows us to expand the technology, allows us to understand it's not just a few patches or pens. The technology is well research established with it, and will go to the same position and the same purpose. Any questions?
Could you maybe say a little more about these, what's called the Keshe Gans handmade ceramic vials? We have the tip, lip, and hip options. Yeah. And maybe you could just explain that a little more.
We chose the words just like the one we used the other times. What we call the tip is the forehead of the man, the lip is the lip of the man, and the hip is the hip position of the man, and is for you to test as volunteers the, what do you call it, the what we call implication and application of with you as volunteers, and collecting the data. It's literally a large data collection, and see how much is achieved, what can be achieved. You have to understand that one of the leading Iranian universities has completed a research of the interaction of the GANS technology in respect to herpes, with a renowned result. And we'll take that position to the next step. We take that position to bring the researchers into becoming what we call easily managed, reachable by the others. We don't have a problem with anything. We have understanding of what things going to be and how they're going to bring things to be as part of. You've seen how Keshe Foundation before has launched other ceramic materials with quite a lot of success, and is just the same as we've done with the paint pen, we've done with the paint pads, we've done with all the masks and everything else, the gel pads and everything else. This is an extension, but this is what is, we think, will resolve massive problem, especially as you've seen a scientific paper in journal some time ago we published. Herpes travels through the middle skin to the brain and to the what we call genitals of the man, and on one end causes problems which we know for centuries, and the other is Alzheimer's, which we've seen scientific reports confirms that a large number of people who has had herpes of lips have or go to the dimension of what we call Alzheimer's. We understand this because We know the brain and the skin at the point of conception are the same. In a way, you feel the emotion of touch with the skin, which your body, your brain knows as touch. So, in a way, the skin of the man is another layer in the dimension of the brain of the man to cover it. And where we see as we explained many times before, where our lips is not part, where the lips connects to the skin of the face, is not the same. It's like a sewn material together and creates a space, microscopic space between the two, which the herpes what we call virus, can slip through as an energy. This actually, when you look at the structure of the lip and the skin, at the boundary of your lips, it's like when you take two pieces of different cloth and you sew them together. Even though you see it as a lip, as where the color changes and the skin starts, it's two pieces of material, totally different, connected to each other, sewn to each other with the magnetic field of the plasma of the cell of the body of the man. And this will bring position, a space gap that this virus can go through, depending on the magnetic field created in that position. And this is why we call it a virus. This is why we handle it as what we call, I'm trying to create what do you call it, whiteboard. I need to be allowed to be shared. Yeah. If you look at it, your skin is there for your face. If you look at the lips, and where the lips start is there. This is your skin, and this is your lip. And there is a gap there. But this gap is not as materialistic as a matter state, but is the ganses of your amino acid. And these ganses, or these amino acids, as you call the cells, have a specific magnetic field gap that separates them, that this virus can actually find a place in. And then this, when it finds that place, it travels in the middle skin to the brain or to what we call genitals sometimes. And this is what we see. And this is what is set. And now, with introduction of what we do, new condition, as we saw before with what we call corona, for example, we create the change and the fields here. So the virus cannot find a field strength to be able to travel in the magnetic field layers of the middle skin. Now we understand the knowledge. Now we understand the technology. Now we understand how it can be handled. It's not a magic. It's a lot of research, a lot of understanding, and you will see it. And if you've been around suffering from this, every now and then you get frightened, it comes up, you see something wrong, it comes up, or it comes regularly 2 or 3 times a year, you understand why it comes about. Because when it comes about, let's say, during the summer, so the fields of the environment has changed, and so these fields react to it and allow that virus to re-show itself, to interact with the skin, and then you see the blisters. Now we understand this. And this now, with what you do with application of the waters, you change this environment that permanently stops this virus and the given strength to go through. It's not a matter state, it's an energy state, and plasma technology and technology is an energy state. And that's why we put this, the new knowledge tested in as I said, one of the leading universities in Iran. The report research is completed. And now we go for what we call testing by knowledge seekers and reporting back that we can pass it on to the structure to be done. The scientific paper for it will be published shortly in one of the world leading magazines, the scientific magazines, and we'll see how it will take shape. It's the same with HIP. We understand is certain kind of emotions, and that's combination of, and it's the same with the migraine. We get migraine on a given condition, the change of fields. So we introduce a balance field into the environment, and that's all it is. It's a science. We don't come with a, we have found the magic solution. No, now we understand how it's created. When that field comes to, in a way of position of expansion or contraction within the structure, but then it creates pain. You call it a migraine. But pain itself is energy. And then when you transfer that energy out, it's more or less the same as pain pen, but in a more elaborate way. And then this is how this technology is introduced to all of you. If you suffer with migraine, if you suffer with herpes, or you suffer with menstruation pain, some of you cannot walk, then just is to try and to report back and let us gather the knowledge that we can bring it to millions of people. We don't need 1 or 2 or 10 people. We need a large number of people. If you know somebody with the herpes, gift it to them if they're important to you. We put the price as it is because it's research development and other things which is going with it, yes. But we can even reduce the price to half, but would it cover the other part of the expenses, which is all involved? Test it and try it, and we'll see. Any other question?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kesh. Let me see here. Okay, we have a number of questions in the Q&A, and they have to do with, well, let me just read them. We have 4 questions from Neo's Red Pill, which is Aliko, who says, I bought my mother some of the Kesh Gans foot pads for her feet pain. When she used it, I could see a bluish orb of light come out of the Gans pad into her toe, that she has a pin in it. I then saw whitish, wispy clouds of plasma released from her pain coming out of her toes and out of the top of the pad. It's amazing that I can see the plasma fields. My questions, Mr. Kesh, is, can you see the plasma fields? Also, is it safe to use the Gans foot pads with pins in the toes? I don't know what kind of pins they are. She said the sensation was too intense of a feeling, and she had to take them off to integrate the fields into her body. I would like her to be able to use the Gans pads on her feet, but don't know if we can with the pins in her toes.
I don't know what the pins are. And we don't put these things. These are made for a specific condition, and they're all certified. And they are for pain relief, or pain, what we call, it's not a pain relief, it's a transfer of fields from the body to the patch. That's all it is. It's not that we introduce something into the body. We're taking fields which are what we call energy out. And if you say you see the fields of the what do you call it, the energy, yes, we call it aura. The aura of the body of the man is the field. So you see the changes when you put in. Some knowledge seekers have done a lot of tests with this, putting patches and taking the with the aura, what they call it, the equipment to see how it change the field. It's not the recommendation, it's made for one job, but if you have a pin, you have to find out how you can remove that pin because these patches are not made for such a job.
Okay, another question from Neo.
There is something, let me explain something, step further into the knowledge. When you have a body and then what you call, you get a pin in it, as we commonly know, which is a dead skin, turning back itself into it. In a way, you literally, it's very interesting, this knowledge. I've done a lot of work in the background with this. I explained to you how it works. Now we understand the knowledge. If you look at the toe and big toe and all the toes, do you get the pins here on your ankles or whatever? Or do you get the pins here? We get most of these pins around this area. But why? And the strange thing is, we call it a pin, but in a way, is the skin of the man turning back itself, leaving the calcium part of the amino acid, and literally creating another nail. But why does it happen in this area? Primarily, when we wear wrong shoes or something else because of in time, we change the composition of the skin in this area to the composition of fields of the nails. So you actually stop producing nail on the position of the foot. And it comes by when you wear a tight shoes, okay, you rub it and whatever, but you change the field structure here. So many of you, if you can understand it, you can change this environment. You don't need chemicals anymore. Simple combination of understanding of Ganses will allow you just changing the condition, and more or less, it should never come back. Or if it comes back, you wear a wrong shoe, just put it back in the Gans which fits it. You change the fields, and the skin will not change, creating calcium. If you look at your toe, in a way, if I can draw it three-dimensionally, your nail grows on top of your toe. But it has, again, like a lip we just talked about, a point of change where the material, when it comes, it changes from amino acid. The blood cells, the skin cells deposit their calcium, and the rest of the energy is used by the body. Our nails is what I called once before mortuary of the calciums of the cell of body of the man. We don't have a single cell in our body which does not contain calcium. And for the whole body, when body is very efficient, the body of the man. When the body of the man works with your legs and arms and head, where there is more activity, there is more change of fields of energy. There is decided in the past to be part of the active part, which is the arms or fingers and toes. And then man so needs or the body so needs for grabbing, holding, or digging or whatever. When the body takes the calcium from femur, making your red blood cells or your other skin cells to be created from their interaction, it carries a calcium. It doesn't take it all the way back to go to the, what do you call it, bladder or to the kidney to be separated to go out through bladder. Body is efficient. It deposits the calcium within a cell in your tip of the conversion of the amino acid to calcium, and it creates nails for you. If you understand this, and now we understand, as you call about the nail on in the skin, it's the same position. You have created that extraction point of calcium on the side of the foot. It's more or less, if you take the, what we call the lip cup and try it, it should give you some results. Then, because you change it, it should not grow. In the future, we most probably develop GANs for this job. It's a very specific way to do it. And you'll see it gone. And then once it's gone, you just need to, every time you did something, you see a nail, you don't need to cut it. People rub it and they cut it and they hacksaw it, they grind it. You don't need to do that. Because this environment has learned to what you call hold, keep the same structure change as your toe. Because this field is dictating this and nothing else. The energy field is there, so creates a replication. Because it's the same as I said to you with a new enhancement without dimension. By moving, we can create different conditions. And this is how it works. It's a very easy solution to get rid of this, what do you call it, toenails and nails you get because of wearing shoes or the wrong shoes or pressure.
I think they call it a bunion, Mr. Kesh. That might be different than what was brought up in this question. I think she's talking about a pin, like a metal pin, titanium or some other pin.
Anyway, we add to the knowledge.
Yes, definitely.
If it's we're talking about titanium pin and things, we usually advise people not to use these systems near any what we call foreign objects embedded in the body. That's the rule we set out years and years.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go on to the next question here, which is from Neo as well. When turning an addictive substance into a food GANs to feed off the plasmatic fields to get off of the matter state of the substance and end addiction by capturing the substance into a nano-coated copper plate with NaOH and KOH, and then put it into a CO2 capture kit to make a food GANs, do you then add regular CO2 GANs to the food GANs so that you will be able to feel the emotion of the substance? Or do you just add CO2 GANs water to the food GANs water before use?
I'm not going there.
Okay, it's kind of a long, involved question. And
no, it's not a long involved. It's about drug trafficking and the effects of drugs, substances.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So we don't get involved in that. In a way, he's looking for a remedy, but then becomes a food, then becomes other things with it. And we don't get involved in this thing.
Okay, there's a further, more general question that sort of could be implicated that way, but it goes also, if I am low on the food GANs, can I add regular CO2 GANs to it to replicate and copy the fields and multiply the food GANs to make more of it? Do you add regular CO2 GANs to the food GANs and let it set for a week to make more?
Different people have tried different ways of doing this, and everyone finds the combination. I know the Chinese we used to do a lot of this things. I talked to one of them, how he does it and how does he replicate something. And each one has different methods. You have to find out what suits you.
Okay. And a final question from Neo. What gauge of copper wire are the field absorption butterflies made out of?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Shall we say something? It's a trade secret.
Yes, right. I think you said that before about them. The procedure, how they're made, is a trade secret, let's say.
But it's not what you see. A lot of people think this is so straightforward. It's not what you see.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go with an easier question from Cristiano and from Brazil and Alexandra. The first question is, what exactly is detachment? To be detached in your understanding. Could you elaborate more on this subject?
Detachment means it does not make any difference to you. It's being or not being. Is existence or non-existence. And is how things are perceived to be. Are you attached to a piece of clothing? Can you live without it? Or it has to be there for you to create an emotion that you exist? Or the way you want to exist? Why do you wear the same color of shirt when you go out to specific places? Because you're attached to the emotion it brings you. If you have no attachment, you can wear any shirt. And is not being important. We test the fire with gold. And we use gold to test how much is attached to materialistic world. And they all say, I'm not attached. Any other question?
A further question from Alexandra. If we stop feeding ourselves completely, what would happen to our body and health? And what would happen to our organs, especially our stomach and intestines? How would we have to proceed to make up the missing 20%?
First of all, it's not going to happen in a process overnight. And depends how you call by feeding. Have you managed to replace the energy absorption you need and energy repulsion you need? Yeah, I'm going to change the screen for you, if you want to put your usual picture on. It is what energies you want. Then if you can replace them, yes. And then we see things changes. Those who have gone through the water process, what we call drinking just water for the energy, they tell you the first few weeks they lose up to 20% of their weight. Some lose a little bit less, some lose a little bit more. But in general, then the body adjusts to the fields which needs. And the important thing is when you go through this process of not eating and you use the gases, or you use the water with gases to do, you have to understand that if your body absorbs the spectrum of the fields it needs, and it doesn't put pressure on thalamus and thymus to create and convert materials. It's very, very, very important for all of you who take that path. If you go to the dimension of using gas water only, your gas water should be covering all dimensions of the fields. We have built this in the enhancement unit. I have to explain to you something as we talk about this. The new enhancement unit with no dimension, we don't stop making the enhancement units as you see it, the white ones, or for the flight. The two now run parallel with each other. You will see, we'll test the enhancement units. But in these enhancement units, there is a feeding sources. It's not just that, as we said, you don't take any food with you, you don't take any other things. The specific systems are built into the enhancement units that it feeds. And what it feeds, it takes from the environment to add to its own, what you call it, depletion. So it's like if you choose a cup, especially if you go in this direction, just don't stick to one cup combination for months and years to come. Create different ganses and cups, and very much it's just you don't want to eat banana all the time, whole day. Now you don't see the banana, but you have created a killer banana, but it needs other things. If you go into these works, but a lot of people are doing, make sure you create a number of different combination cups. That you create a spectrum of food, not one. It's like you become a vegetarian, but your body will suffer with the meat and says, oh, I went there and it did this and that. Because mono cup feeding, at the moment, a lot of people do, is a problem. It means you are not replenishing everything. You're eating just a vegetarian and one kind of vegetable. You have to change the vegetable, you have to have. So those of you who do this kind of testing, make sure you make a combination of cups. And when you drink the water, make sure sometimes you mix the water of cups together. You know, you take your sugar and you put a cream with it. Now, that's what it is. One is the sugar, one is the cream. But that sugar and cream creates an different condition of absorption in the body of the man. And this is important for most of the knowledge seekers which go that way. And then you have the condition, there are some knowledge seekers who don't drink anymore, not even drinking. They have developed next step. It's not the extension of the feeding of the soul. They feed their physicality in a different way. And we see a lot of advantage, a lot of work with this one. And we see literally it has to be done. You can't start ganses only tomorrow and that's it, I don't eat anymore. This waters which you can create as the new food has to come over a span of 6 months. You gradually add to it, you gradually do it. And the new generation of what I call cycle of man will do that internally. We train it and then it matches and it goes out. That the man doesn't eat anymore. It just learns to the soul to absorb and feed the body of the man. And it works amazing. And the body structure is solid. They don't see any illnesses because the body interacts. The new cycle of man has already started, and it's not just you not drinking or not eating anymore. The body, the kidneys have to adjust. The stomach has to adjust. You have a stomach which is built there to create energies by, in a way, converting the cells of the materials you eat. Now it receives energy. What's going to do with the acids? What happened when you eat while you stopped eating? We met one of the guys who actually He was with us for a few days, and I watched him. He says, "Mr. Kesh, I'm eating just because I'm in front of you. I pretend to eat. I eat very, very little. I haven't eaten for months. I think 7 months. We didn't eat anything." I said, "I just ate, my friend, because I don't want to look as I'm strange." The whole intestinal operation changes. Man in a space will not have lips or digestion system. Man in a space will not have lung. It's an impossibility. If man is going to be a man of space, there are no oxygen. And there are no sticks on Mars or another planetary system. This is a pitfall with the UFOs. They are still in part dependent on the physicality, but they've sort of very much the way embracing the new science technologies. And you have to be very, 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 very extremely careful during the time of transition. If you just take gases, and those of you who now don't even take, when you talk gases, it means the water, not the gases. You never eat the gas. Then there are those of you who have even passed that point. They don't need to eat anything. Not even the water. There are a number of knowledge seekers who have moved in that direction. But it has to be done with a lot of understanding. A lot of understanding that you don't create problems and you absorb the right fields and a lot of other conditions. It needs months and months of preparation, and you have to go through stage by stage, and many, many knowledge seekers are doing it. And as like I said, the economical situation forces me to, because I can't afford meat. But now I know at least I get the energy which my body needs. And it's moving in that direction. And technology we developed in the enhancement unit carries this. It's part of the structure. Any other question?
We'll remind our attendees here that they can raise their virtual hands, and then you can have your microphone opened and able to ask a question. We have a couple of questions here. One in the chat from Iris, another in the Q&A from Paul. Iris says, "Good morning, Mr. Kesh. Thank you for your presence today. I have a question about the religions and religious leaders, especially the fundamentalists, the radical ones in Islam. We face hate everywhere in the world, but the ones who are not familiar with the Islamic belief system, it's sometimes unbelievable how they are collectively radicalized since early childhood. Have you an advice how to cope with their mentality or belief system, especially with the male ones? I love how the UC works also on those demands as a collective soul. Thank you."
She understand. Can you?
She adds, I mean that they want to buy or kill all of us. So she seems to have trouble with the fundamentalist radical people in Islam that want to buy or kill all of us. Do you have any advice how to cope with their mentality? I don't quite understand the
well, we have to understand a lot of
there.
things. Yes, a lot. These things needs to understand the culture and becoming radical to what we see to kill. I try to look at this in a different way, even with the news we had yesterday, the massacre in the United States. Why do humans do these things? Why do we create hate for somebody else or some just because of the color or path of belief? Or why that our way is the only way? What we call radicalism. The only way will be is the elevation of the soul. You cannot change it. I've been brought up in the environment which have seen radicalism. And I know exactly how they are brought up to become and see everything else as a what do you call it, a bad thing. Because they've been from childhood, from then. Then we say they become victims, and then we see the radicalism, especially now we talk about Islamic religion, is encouraged by those who benefit by it through the power and financial means. I was explaining this to what do you call it? Someone yesterday. We hear in the news that the Chinese government is taken, and as BBC has reported, apparently that there are, what do you call it, taken radical steps against the Islamic groups in the west of China. And the BBC is making it very big that now is human rights, what do you call, condemnation, that they are persecuting of Muslims in certain regions of China. But how come some of these people who came from these areas and moved through the Industrial Revolution to the east, we don't see these things with them? A lot of Muslims on the west of China, in these areas, northwest and the other parts, which now Islamic controlled, whatever, and they're accusing that the Chinese government has taken radical action against them. China is not doing it without a reason. And it's not doing what they are trying to expose, because they tell us half of this story. BBC does not tell you the other half of the story. Or the Western press doesn't tell you the other half of the story. Why? The Chinese government? Maybe in some ways it's too harsh, maybe in some ways it's radical. But if they don't do what they're controlling, you will see the story of Texas yesterday all over China. BBC doesn't tell you that these people in these areas moved back into Afghanistan, trained to kill, to do whatever for fanaticism of whatever they believed in, and now they moved back in China. And they're creating a new breed of radicalism and racism. Chinese controlling it very harsh. Didn't have this problem, doesn't have this problem with the Muslims in the West Coast and the rest. In the East, they've been radicalized because of the poverty. All the investment was done on the West, on the East Coast, on the Eastern nation, part of the nation. And a lot moved from the poverty side to the others, to as immigrants, to work immigrants. And they changed, and they don't look at these things. But those who are in poverty say, oh, see, this is what the Chinese government does to you. But there are other things behind it. This creates a breeding environment of the radical condition. But to me, Chinese government has to deal with it in a totally different manner. But that's what they do, is the way they see it. It is not to do whatever they are doing now, is to create, and they've done a lot of this work, a new environment financial environment, that these things cannot be abused by those who see their position of power. Radicalism comes out of when people see themselves as a source of a change. Then they bomb themselves and they blow themselves and they kill others and the rest. And some governments can control it, some governments push to control it, but some breed it. And it's not the exclusivity of Islam. We see it in Christianity in a different form. We see it in Jewish religion. People, we see it in the Buddhist, but they are not as open as we see it with the Islamic world. But you have to understand the culture of Islam is backed by killing. When the Arabs came to Iraq, they said to you, say one sentence or we behead you. And how many Iranians got beheaded? Because the culture is based on killing. So that culture, not to be killed, you kill, and it's been then added the flavor of words of books and holy books to fit and to suit. It's the religious leaders who breed this for them feeling in power. And those are in that way, they take it up. And it's not exclusivity of Islam. You call it rednecks in the United States in different shape or form. You call it racism in different shape or form. And then it goes down the line. It's the same behavior, but when we give a name of religion to it, it becomes radicalized. The most radical group we've seen in the same way is the rednecks in the United States. And they may have their creed, but they don't report it. But it's the same thing. Color racism, race racism. And they are embedded in it. We had a few of them in Keshe Foundation. They like the teaching, but they don't like some of you because you're in the wrong color, but they just tolerate you just because we're in the Keshe Foundation for a time. So it's not exclusivity, and it's no way to raise their soul. It needs that thing, what we call change of the fields of this planet. And this is what you lot are doing gradually, and new technologies. We change the field. Let me explain this. I was explaining this recently to someone. You see, we call it global warming. With the addition of CO2, and then we've seen in the evolution of the time of this planet how by increasing the CO2 by natural process and create your oxygen and other things, life has evolved and become what it is. Now with the gases, we are going through that process. We are changing that field, but that field will bring back the energy back into the environment. That man will go, animal will go one step higher. And the field changes. We see this change because it's very simple. We just look what we want to look. But when I sit, I look at the totality. If you look at, let me, if I can find it, I'll show you. We've seen this so many times that we don't even think about it. Is because we look at the wrong side of the what we call information. I have to find it. I show you. Rick, do you have a picture somewhere where we have like cucumbers or marrows, which are two different sizes, the one with a GANs and one without a GANs.
That's a classic picture, but it's deep in my archives. Let me have a look.
If you look at this picture, you talk about what you call, you see what the GANs does and how it changes the harvest. But there it is. I found it. It's okay, Rick, two of them. When you look at this picture or this picture, don't look at the growth. Look at it as change of environment has created a new race, new condition. They look the same, but they're not really the same. The one which is grown has the capability, has accepted the new environment. Which we introduce with the GANs. So it's a new creature, but looks the same because we associate it with it. And the people who eat it, they tell you they're much more delicious. Wang Li, in China, is on the, what do you call it, on the board, she can tell you. It tastes more delicious, it has more, whatever. So we change the condition inside. It's not just the size. This Wang Lin in the background, because she's done some of the work with the farmers in China. And she can bring it up. If she can explain to us, if she's still there. No, I don't see her. She was here previously. So we see it as a increase in the size, but in taste and texture has changed too. When we create so much gases, we change the things inside. Our texture, our emotion will change. We feel bigger, we feel more healthier. And this is why we go for mass changes, productions of gases in a large scale. We use it for the enhancement of the environment, but we use it for other agricultural or other purposes. And this is what we are about. We are changing the environment, and that environment creates a new creature. New, even it looks the same from outside, but different emotion, different taste inside. I remember Lisa and John were telling us some time ago, a few years ago, that the people who buy their lettuces, they come back because they get a different whatever from it, and they specifically go for that lettuce, which they used to produce in the market. Because we add fields which interacts with the emotion and the amino acid of the body of the man. So would we be able to create gases that changes, elevates the man not to be racist, not to be radicalized? The answer is 100% yes. What happened if we have access to one of these radical mosques or churches or whatever, and we add a CO2 water with some other gases which fits into the emotion, and people will change. Muslims are one of the easiest ones to use gases to change them from radical behavior. I looked at it many times. And now we have the knowledge, we can do it without touching. Muslims pray so many times a day, so many prayers. And every time they have to wash their face, they have to wash their feet, they have to wash their hands after that. If the knowledge seekers add these gases into the tank where the water comes from, or in the process when it comes out and they wash themselves, we change the mind. Maybe with the rednecks, we added into their whiskeys and into their beer. And with the Jews, we add to the red wine and what we call Shabbat dinner. But it's now we know it can happen. It's a change of emotion, and people just change.
Mr. Kesh, Ruthie is here now as well.
Is she Ruthie Banglin? You there?
Yes, Mr. Kesh.
Yes. Banglin, could you tell us, because you had more experiences with the Chinese farmers, where they use the ganses, how they talk about the change of taste and change of texture and that kind of thing?
Yes, last time I've been to the farm who produced the cucumber, and I was there, and I directly just take one to taste. It is really different, and even the taste of the aubergine is different. You remember Fan, and we take some aubergine and this cucumber to his guest, those government officers. And I remember everybody was there. They say this is a so different taste from the aubergine or the cucumber what they had before. I call it's remind me the memory of the childish. At that time, it seems the land is more nourished and there's no such much fertilizer, chemical fertilizer. So the taste of the vegetable is totally different.
So it creates a different emotion when you eat it, the pleasure.
Yes, actually, I had a lot of different like products, such as those soya beans and peanuts. It's totally different. Even the fruit, the kiwi, the taste, totally different. It's more like vivid. It's more orange and more let you feel the life.
This is part of what we call the change of emotion, which they bring when you use them. Thank you very much, Manmeet.
Thank you.
Indeed. Thank you. So we see the change. We can do it in food, or we can do it with a bath. And maybe we have to create systems which in the places where we see radicalism, the waves are there to elevate, and we don't see it. People don't even remember why they've been radicalized or were they radical. Because we've seen it. People do things out of the pattern of life, and then they walk out of it when they see something change different. We see that in the structure of the British youth. British youth from age of 12 become criminal to age of 20, 25. And back end of 25, they don't even live the life of criminals because that was something they had to do. They sometimes spend even time in prison for it. But when they reach that point, they just walk differently. So the pattern can be changed because they see no more fun in it. They don't see any interest in it. Even some still do stupid things when they used to be youth. But we've seen that historically in British. And I studied this very thoroughly, how British youth become criminals, they become violent, and after 25, 30, they don't even want to talk about it. So that was something I did when I was young. I was radicalized to do because I had to be part of the other group because I wanted to be, and it was something I stood out. Any other question? I changed the screen. Quick. Any other question?
We had a question from John in regards to what you were saying about the larger vegetables and so on. He says, is this what happens with the civilization in the hollow earth when they grow 10 to 12 feet tall and change their way of being?
I haven't seen one. I can't make any comments.
Haven't met one yet, eh?
Any other question?
Well, we had a couple of very good questions. First of all, you mentioned in the previous topic that the elevation of the soul was the answer, to raise them up. So Paul has the question in our Q&A: how can I elevate the soul of another person?
Just by giving. That's all. By reaching it through the soul, nothing else. Any other question?
Okay, that's a good, simple answer. We have one hand up here, but before that, I'd like to see your answer to a question from I Am in the YouTube. Says, Mr. Keshe, why does being a traveler of the universe sound like a lonely expedition? Help me see the beauty in it, as you say.
It's not. Who said? You are not a lonely traveler. You can still go with the spaceship, or even if you choose a place to go to, you still have to interact. Anywhere in the universe, as a field, as a plasma, as a soul, you have to interact. You cannot be alone. Depends how far your tentacles of the field reaches. Huh?
You mentioned that people often travel in a pack of 4, for example.
Yeah.
Or not people, but beings or entities, let's say.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a hand up from our Thomas here. If you'd like to go ahead.
Thank you, Rick. Good morning, Mr. Keshe. How are you?
Thank you very much.
Mr. Keshe, I have a question with the ganses I have in my house. I have, these bottles which you can buy from the store. I have 3 of these size bottles. One is of cup 1, which I got from Dr. Klaus. Then I have another one, which is CO2 and CNO, GANS amino acids unwashed. And I have a third bottle with powder dry GANS, which is of CO2 and zinc.
Yeah.
Now, I have them just standing in my house. If I put it close to my water would take up the fields.
Yeah.
Now, if I just have them standing in my house, are they always giving up, and how far are they giving up fields?
There is no limitation.
So you
Once
see,
you establish stealing, once you held it in your hand and you positioned it, you have made a contract.
because if somebody comes to my house, they're always, I feel that they're immediately getting sort of like very peaceful, no stress. My dog, for instance, he is 17 years old and he is a little dement, but his health is very good. Is that from these 3 bottles I have standing in my house?
I don't know. But when you have the bot, when you have any kind of GANs, and especially you made it and you place it, by placing it, you have created the connection.
No, actually, the Ganses, I have one which I received from Dr. Klaus.
Yes, but you
Yeah.
touched it, you placed it.
Yes, I have it in my hands regularly.
Yeah.
I take it in my hands.
So wherever you go in the house, you have a connection with that field.
And the people who are coming in new, is it that
The
they,
fields are there. You create the fields, so the fields are there. If they interact with it, yes. If they come across it, yes.
wonderful? I was just, I was wondering because I have these 3 bottles and everything. People really, when they come, they get sort of very relaxed, very relaxed.
Yeah. It just depends on what the strength that thing is. We've seen people who have used these bottles in the house and we see it changes color, it changes the GANS level, all sorts of things. People we have with aggression, they change into calm people. It depends what you put it in and the way you put it in and what purpose you use it.
Actually, I have no specific purpose. I've just,
I know, you just put it there. So these are the fields which are at the strength of the, what do you call it, what man needs more, like emotion with the ganses or CO2s to connect with it. Some of these ganses are mixture, are delivered for certain purposes.
very good.
And thank you very much. Any other
Thank
questions?
you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we have a question from Dan in the Q&A. How can a soul manifest itself in 3 bodies at the same time, such as Moses, the prophet Elijah, and Jesus?
It's the same soul. But does it change if you wear a suit or a swimwear or you wear a sheepskin? It's the same man inside, it's the same soul inside. Souls have no life limit where the physicality has. Any other question?
I think we have our questions pretty much answered here. Would you like to see the latest with the Create the Future design contest?
Have you put it back in again, Obscene?
Yes, I'll show you here. Here's the Create the Future design contest. I'll make the picture a bit smaller so you can.
Have you had any hits? Doesn't matter
Yeah.
how many hits we get. Doesn't matter how many people vote. The decision is made somewhere else.
Yeah, well, we'll do well in the popular votes again. If you look at the number of votes right now, we're in 2nd position in the popular vote. We're a long ways away from first, who somehow got 435 votes, and everyone else is under 70, and we've got 92 at this moment. but we're it's kind of late in the game and rapidly increasing. So we've worked our way up that top 10 list very quickly and is now in second position. We'll probably maintain that second position, I expect. So we pretty much have that nailed. And if you look at the number of page views, this is just since it's been less than a couple of weeks that this has been in. We're in the third position in page views and about to take the second position away from the from this unit here. So it's kind of interesting.
What are your numbers again? 2030.
We're at 2070 right now. Just went up 5 or 6 in the last few minutes. And currently this one's at 2145. I expect our unit will surpass that one in the next couple of hours or few hours. And the first one here is Advanced Wearable Artificial Intelligence Translator has 9,664 views. So we got a long ways to go for that. But last year we got about that many views, or in fact, way more than that. So I'm sure we'll surpass that quite readily. And they're not increasing very much at all right now. So we'll see. In any case, we're up in the very high percentile. And because we're in the aerospace and defense category this year instead of the medical category, that's kind of interesting. And if we look at the number of views there, then of course the Universal Flight Enhancement Spaceship Unit is number 1, and the second position is half the number of views. So we'll maintain that position of number 1 in views in the aerospace and defense section of this contest. And that should at least get the attention of some of the judges, if not their votes this year.
Yeah.
You know, it's worth a try just for getting the name out there and letting them know there's something different going on other than their little world of engineering that they're used to.
Yep. That's nice. This is something else to watch for next few weeks.
Yeah, it's kind of fun, I think. So
Okay.
we'll see.
Yeah.
So let me give the a brief instruction here so people know how to vote for it. I'll put the link into the chat and just put that in there. And you can go to the upper right part of the page where it says log in and sign up. And if you voted last year, you can log in and quickly vote for this year's. If you sign up, you have to go to a special page and fill in the blanks here and with your name and address and so on, so they don't have any fraud in the voting process. And then you can log in to vote for the unit. And all that's found on that same page as where the unit is there in that link. All right, so thanks everyone who voted and will vote. And it's a chance to pay back a little bit in a small way for this knowledge that we've been given by Mr. Kesh and the Kesh Foundation.
Thank you very much. Shall we call it a day?
Sure, yes.
Yep. Thank you very much indeed. And hopefully we'll see you next time. And we'll see where we go and what we can learn more. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Mr. Kesh, once again. Thank you, everybody, for attending today's 434th Knowledge Seekers Workshop here on Thursday, May 26, 2022. What do we have coming up? We have the One Nation, One Planet, One Race for World Peace. Let me just get the date for that. That will still be in May. May 31st will be Tuesday of next week, and that'll be the next installment of that workshop. And That starts at 4 p.m. Central European time. Okay, thanks everyone. And we'll see you next time around. I'll play the Spaceship Unit music version, so we have a bit of clapping and dancing to go out with. And we'll see you in the next workshop.